Hello and welcome to your Wednesday dose of wealth wisdom with me, Daniel Kennedy, your host. Today we're going to be discussing the new topic, which is why property is a long-term play. It's been a while since we've been away. I've had a cacophony of illnesses, been traveling, so this is why we're back on, and there's been such a large gap in between this podcast and the previous one. So the reason why I picked this one today was I see forever and a day, and you've all seen them, we all know what's out there. You get sold the dream of property and how it's a real great vehicle for building wealth really, really fast. And the fact of the matter is, it's really not. It's a very, very slow term play. You'd be much better off starting a service-based business as opposed to a property-based business. Maybe a service within property because there's no cap. Whereas property, you sort of like are defined by market rents, and you only really visualize your profit 3-4 months after the deal has completed, and very often it's quite difficult to get the deals. So this is why when you get involved in property, I want you to have a think that it's a decade-long play. Can you get rich before 10 years? Yes, absolutely. Will you? Potentially, if you do things right. But most of us are just Mr. Average, Mrs. Average. We've got jobs, we've got lives, we've got families, and very few people can replicate like the, you've got the pop stars within the property business who just seem to be doing deals left, right, and centre, like smashing it out of the park. And when you compare yourself to those few very, very, very in the minority individuals, you can often get disheartened with your progress. And I chat to quite a lot of people. I'm a wealth tracking coach, so I see people getting really, really down in the dumps about their lack of progress. And it's because they're setting themselves unrealistic expectations. You're not going to get rich in property in the first year. I don't care who you are. Unless you've got big financial money behind you, as if there's another type of money, all money's financial. Unless you've got big money reserves behind you, you're going to struggle to turn a profit because you're going to have to raise finance, do deals, pay back your investors, and usually you leave a bit of money in the deal. If you're a wealth dragon HMO property guy like myself, that's what we do. We leave quite a lot of money in our deals, so it takes us a good 3-4 years before we see any profit. And this is why I believe property is a long-term play. So I've got a few subjects here and a few questions because quite a lot of people have asked me about this. Like what should I be doing in the first year and all sorts, but we're not going to be touching on that. We're just going to stay on this subject. Where is it? So, setting realistic expectations. You need to think very, very long term. You're not going to quit your job this year. And if you think you're going to quit your job this year and suddenly you're getting really stressed out with your job because you're still in work, that isn't going to help your property business. Like for me, it took 4 years for me to quit my job, and still I'm exchanging a lot of my time for money. I'm still not living off property income. As I mentioned to previously, it's because we have to pay back investors. Our whole portfolio is built from raised finance. So a good realistic expectation is to not buy anything in the first year because you're learning. It's such a dangerous game to rush to buy a deal. When you've got that pressure of, I need to buy something, the risk of buying a complete wet dog, well, there's nothing wrong with wet dogs, but the risk of buying a bad deal, like, tremendously is basically that the risk is a lot higher. And for me, I didn't buy anything in my first year. I bought my first deal in my second year of property because I was sourcing. I had no money behind me. And in the early days, people will say, go raise finance, it's easy to raise finance. It's not easy to raise finance, especially when you've got, 1, no credibility, 2, you haven't really got a social circle that would trust you to lend you money. For me, I didn't. 3, you've got no one really cares about your story because you haven't built your brand as much as it's like, make your service the best thing about you. You've got to build a brand for people to invest in you because they need to know about you. This is why social media presence is so important. So you're probably not going to raise money unless you JV with somebody and they're a key member of the business. But that's not going to happen on day one because you haven't got the education, you haven't got the credibility, you haven't got the track record. From a standing start, it's very, very difficult to raise finance. And I didn't raise any finance in the first year, but I talked a lot about what I was doing in terms of sourcing and the deals that I sourced, and I saw some really, really good deals. Some investors made a lot of money off the backs of my labour, and that's just the fact of the matter. You need to be able to source, get involved in some way in property that's sort of like low entry and not rent to rent. Rent to rent's ridiculous. Don't waste your time doing rent to rent. Source. Learn the art of sourcing, because then you can source for yourself. And once you've got the art of sourcing down, you will be the go-to person. And then you can leverage those relationships, because everyone will come to you to buy a deal if you're the person who's able to source. And then when you become that, you build up a great network of people who obviously have money, right? They obviously have money because they're coming to you to buy deals. So then you've got this great list that you can hit up, build relationships with, and build your tribe. I like to call it a tribe. And it takes a long time for them to trust you to part with your money. And some it may only be a couple of grand the first time, but then as long as you pay it back, and the amount will increase. So what it takes from building a business from nothing. So for me, my situation, if you've been watching the podcast, you all know it, right? I didn't have any property experience. I was a complete and utter novice, to the point where I didn't know what freehold and leasehold was. I had to go away and learn that. And very often in the seminars, they'd say, you need to get a mortgage. And my next question would be, what the hell is a mortgage? That's how dumb I was to property. And that's basically because I was in my little military bubble. I had everything done for me. I didn't even have to buy toilet paper. Like, everything was done for me. And that creates a very, 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 that's not a good place to be in when everything is done for you. And the only thing you need to concentrate is on work and your fitness. And that's all we did. And you excel for fitness. You didn't excel from like going out and building a business in Civvy Street while you were in the military. Like, they don't encourage that. And you can very often leave the military being completely institutionalized and be like, where do I get toilet paper from? And that's why so many soldiers struggle at. So building a business from nothing, you need to obviously accept you're going to have hundreds and hundreds of no's. I had really, really close friends where I had cracking deals, and because when I first started sourcing, my deals were like, I'd get the RIC survey, which would be like 60k, and I could buy the deal for 27k, and I'd be like, listen man, I only need 30, 40k to do this deal, and I can refinance and pull all the money out and give you the money, so we get a property for free. And this good friend was like, nah, not doing it. And because I didn't know how to negotiate, because my skills were lacking in every single area, every bit needed work. Like the way that I talk now, I've been working on, because I've been told that it's too fast. The way that I negotiate was very, very subpar, and I lost many deals because I was rushing the deal and not giving the clients time to talk and tell me about their problems. And same with raising finance. I was begging, I wasn't offering the opportunity. I was literally like, please man, give me 40k. And he was like, no, just cold as ice. He was a Chinese guy, a good friend of mine. And that relationship broke down, because when the business took off after all the hard work, he was like, yeah, I'm ready, I want to come in. I was like, it's too late, the hard work's been done, do one, mate. And that wasn't his fault, that's my fault, because I didn't know and understand how negotiation worked. So yeah, like hundreds of thousands of pounds in equity I had to source out. I would be a lot more wealthy if I had that initial pot behind me. But I was a complete idiot with my money in the military. I just wasted it. Like, the only financial advice I got was go get a car and get a loan so you could get a better car. It's fucking ridiculous. That's the sort of stuff you get told. When you look back at it, it's crazy. So you need to fully accept that you're going to be providing a service. You're not going to be buying deals. Not from the word go, unless you've got a JV partner. So my advice to you, if you're starting out, is sourcing. Learn the art of sourcing. That's what it's going to take. You're going to be knocking on doors. You're going to be pitching to sellers, and focus on one area. Don't like pepper pot over the whole country. Because if you become that go-to person, like, agents will call you up, people will call you up, and you're hitting the same area, I think that's a real good plus. There are absolute rock stars who are able to source from all over the country. They've set up systems, and that's way beyond me. Like, honestly, I'm never going to even attempt to learn what they're doing, and they're earning a hell of a lot more than I ever will from sourcing. But sourcing is exchanging your time for money. Recognize that. Recognize that the real sort of engine for wealth is holding property. And I've chatted to a lot of people who went pop in 2007, and you just got to de-risk that. Like, don't be too greedy, don't keep refinancing, and eventually you will be a very, very wealthy person, as long as you have patience. And this is why I say property is a decade-long play. And one example of that is when we have fixed return finance on a property, after we pay it off, we still then divert those profits to the newer HMOs to enable us to get better returns and get the money back sooner from paying off the company, if that makes sense. And then also, we never refinance. After the second time we refinance, so we buy, refurb, refinance, we're never going to refinance and pull out more. It's just stupid. Like, everyone who went pop in 2007 said, I wish I didn't keep leveraging. I wish I didn't keep leveraging. We might use that equity like to bridge on and then pay off as we expand that way, but we're never going to refinance it and make that the norm. We're just going to keep it and let inflation eat away at the debt. So I want you to source and I want you to be really, 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 really loud about what you're doing. Every mundane problem, every mundane success, share it, because there will be somebody out there who may have money who will want to be where you are and maybe don't have the courage or don't have the tenacity, discipline, or even the desire, but just like look at what you're doing and think, yeah, I could do that, but then they don't bother their ass, and they might have money and they might lend you, or they might partner with you, or you might be able to source to them, etc. So have a really low bar for what you consider content. So the pitfalls of a standing start, and what is the next subject, and that's going to be basically you've got a lack of experience, so people are going to take advantage of you. For sure, it's going to happen. So if you can prepare yourself and have this in the back of your mind whenever you meet someone, whenever you like chat to somebody, there's very few people, like very few, I can count them on one hand, who I would trust wholeheartedly. Everyone is out for themselves, and there's nothing wrong with that, but a lot of people will be wanting to step on others, and I made some mistakes. Like, I tried to cut sources out and stuff. I did really, because I was naive. I thought, yeah, this is the best way to do it, and then I burnt loads of relationships up. So just be really, really sort of moralistic in how you deal with people in business. You have to make sure that you are doing what you say you're going to do. You build that trust, you build that sort of brand behind you, and stuff goes wrong. For sure, no deal has ever been smooth. No sourcing, like transaction, has ever been smooth for me. But having the ability to see it through, stick with it, adapt to the problems, and see it through to the end will do real great testament to your character, and you'll build this, as I said, loyal tribe. So have in the back of your mind, everyone is there to screw you over. So protect yourself in every possible way. So if you're lending money, make sure you do due diligence on the person. If you're wanting to part with large sums of money for a trainer, make sure you run searches on the company house. Are they doing deals? Are the coaches doing deals? And when I say doing deals, I mean doing deals today, because the industry changes so quickly, like so quickly. If your last deal was a year ago, you're not current. It has to be like, you have to be doing them, during them, in the middle of some deals, some in the pipeline, etc. And you won't hear this from many other coaches, because most people tend to make quite a lot of money via coaching rather than it supplementing the property income. So make sure that the person that you're investing, or the person in that you're doing due diligence on, you absolutely assume that they're lying to you until they give you proof. That's the same with sources. Like, never take anything at face value. Always check, always do due diligence. Always do due diligence. And it just puts you in good stead. We've been burnt for quite a lot of money in the past just by trusting somebody at their word. In fact, quite a few times we've been burnt, and we never do it now. Like, we assume everyone's lying, and maybe that'll turn us into a negative person overall, but we're making a hell of a lot more money now, and our deals are a hell of a lot more successful. So when somebody tells you they're there, go check. When somebody tells you it's done, go check. But like, just don't assume. Like, and you may think, oh, that's going to be really hard for systemization. I don't care. You need to ensure that stuff is done. Like, you're not going to systemize in property to a grand scale in the early days, because you haven't built that team, you haven't got those employees directly for you. So you're going to be using contractors, you're going to be using like outsourcing, maybe like agents and stuff. Check everyone, everything, and all the time. Because the buck always stops with you at the landlord, and that's why starting from a standing start, you need to hit the books, hit the forums, hit the trainers, hit the coaches, hit the network that you're within, and try and learn as much about managing as well as sourcing, because it's all all very important, and the fines can be absolutely astronomical if you don't get this right. So when should you go to full-time into property? So I would say the first goal that you should have shouldn't be to go full-time into property. It should be, if you've paid for a course, or you've paid for education, or you've paid a lot of money for some mentoring, the first goal you should have is to get the money that you paid for teaching back. That should be your first goal. Not build passive income, not build cash flow or anything like this. And I'm talking to you who is starting with nothing, from a standing start. So that's what I'd like you to do. And how can you do that? You do it by sourcing. That's it, just source and get your money back from how much you've paid for training. If that's £15,000, that might be 4 deals or 5 deals, but one really good deal. If that's, because there's some high ticket items, aren't there? There's like 30, 40k mentorships out there, I think, which, hey, if it brings value, then go for it. But when you've got the wealth dragons that do 15k for life, why the fuck would you go anywhere else? It just logically, it doesn't make sense. But if you've spent £50,000 with someone, don't buy more courses until you've got that, recoup those funds. We have people who are course junkies who just go from mentorship, and they've only got one deal. Like, stop it, man. Everyone is delivering the same stuff. The only thing that is different is the after service. There's like, how many ways can you buy property? There's probably maybe 13, 14 ways, and we're all teaching the same stuff. It's only the aftercare and the sort of like the solicitor, the broker, and the coaches and the mentors that are out there that support you and structure these deals for you. That's the only thing that's different. So stop going to all these courses. And so say if you do an essay course, which I hope you don't, because I don't like that strategy either. Don't then do a HMO course, a development course, until you've got the money back from the essay course. And there are companies out there that will split every single thing up just to try and extract as much money as they can from you. In reality, you don't need it to be split up. You can go into an all-encompassing network. You can get everything that you need and start small. So don't try and do like a big £10 million deal. So we've got like a student that I'm helping out, and it's a cracking deal. It's a great deal, but it's too big. So what's going to happen is we're going to source it out, which is great, and she's going to get a fat fee if it comes, and she's going to get a lot of experience. But those big deals, they're very, very rare. So focus on the smaller deals if you can, because then you have a wider market. Okay, so when to go full time into property is after you've got all the money back from the course, you've got one buy to let in a company, and if you're going down the HMO route, you need 1 5-bed. And you need to have had it for a year, because then you've got experience. So you need to have income, gross income of over £25,000 is my personal opinion, because it'll unlock lending. You need to have been a landlord for 2 years. So after you buy your first deal, you be a landlord for 2 years. And if you're doing HMO or a bigger development, you need a couple of properties before you go full time. Not just one, not just bloody rent to rents, because then you're unable to get lending. Like you're screwed. You can't get lending. You need to plan and look after this new child that you have, which is your credit file. And when you quit your job after you've done one rent to rent or a few sourcing deals, you start again in terms of how you're able to get finance, because you need to have over 25k, you need to hit a few parameters, you need to have landlord experience for the bigger deals. You're not going to be buying a 50-bed HMO on your first deal. You're just not. Anyone who tells you that is probably there to sell you a course. Have a realistic expectation. Start small. If you're going to do a HMO, it's going to be 5 to 6. Then you're going to jump up to 8. And then maybe you can do some more exciting stuff. But just start with your vanilla buy-to-let. That's what I did. I bought one buy-to-let. It made £3,000 in 10 years. I bought it in 2011, which was like the lowest part of the market. So that's when I obviously overpaid massively in 2011, because it didn't go up. I sold it for 90k. It was ridiculous. But it is what it is. So the timeline of a property business when you've got no money. I've touched on this on stages of the property journey, so I'm only just going to briefly go over it. Stage 1, you're going to source until you get the money back from your course or whatever education you've got, because it's going to give you sort of like the milestone. It's going to give you a goal, and that's what I would hope that you would do in the first year, is source to the point where you get your money back. Then you're going to after you've adopted the skill of sourcing, and you're being really, really loud about it, you're going to jump into trying to raise finance. You might have to JV with 1 or 2 deals in the beginning, or you might have to partner with somebody who's got a lot of money but not a lot of time, and that might be the case. And then you're going to build, and then you're going to be sourcing for yourself. But still, you're still in full-time work. This is stuff that you do at weekends and in evenings and in your holidays. Then you get to a point where you've got 25 gross income within the business, within the company, and you're also 2 years worth of experience. It's just going to make lending very easy for you. And obviously discuss with your broker if you can still get lending and if you can leave, etc. You don't want to jump the gun before you are able to, and you also want to have that cushion. People talk about comfort. It's nice to have that cushion, especially if you've got families and living expenses. And so you're talking about 3-4 years into your property journey. This isn't year 1, this isn't year 2, this is 3-4 years in. So this is the expectation I want you to have. So don't get disheartened when you're a year in and you haven't quit your job and you haven't got a bloody Tesla in the drive. Like it's completely, like, there are going to be people who you'll look to and you'll say, how are they doing so good, so quickly, so fast? Those people are in the minority, let me tell you. Most of us are just Mr. Average, Mrs. Average, and you can replicate what other people do fairly easily just by having patience. Like 10 years is going to pass anyway, right? So we can't stop that. So why not put in the work now and have an absolutely blinding life at the end of that 10 years, rather than just postponing it, getting disheartened that you're copying other people and you're still not getting the same results. Everyone is in their own lane, so just keep plodding away at it. Right, and now year 1, the size of the deals that you'd be looking at. You want to expect, if you've got no credibility, you've got no history of sourcing deals, you're not going to have a really big market to sell to. You can announce yourself on a few Facebook groups, you can announce yourself on a public page, but it's going to be quite difficult for you to sell those deals unless you go networking. That's the best place that I found people wanting to buy. So get some business cards, introduce yourself as a sourcer, go on Gumtree, maybe put a few dummy ads out, because then you get loads of calls from people wanting deals. That's quite an interesting tool. And then go source. Sourcing isn't actually as difficult to sell as you might think. As long as it's a good deal and you're obviously compliant, you're a member of the property redress scheme, you've got business, I think it's public liability, business liability insurance, you've got your code, and you've got your anti-money laundering checks, because you need to do AML checks on the people who buy your deals. And also what to expect from sourcing. When they say, yes, I want to buy, good, congratulations, you've sourced your first deal. Give yourself a massive pat on the back, there's no other work. Wrong, there's shitloads of work to do. To see a deal from saying yes to fruition is also quite a bit of work. And in that time, you're going to have to still account for your living expenses before you get that money from the sourcing. You're still going to market, you're still going to build up your pipeline of deals before you source on. So you're going to be looking at deals under £100,000, I would suspect, just for the first couple, until you get 1 or 2 over the line and you've presented yourself to the world and to the industry as a sourcer. Then you can go for like £400,000-500,000 deals, maybe in London, and then in the cities as you build your brand. It shouldn't be too difficult to sell a deal as long as it's good, not 10% below the market value. You need like good 25, 30. And you may think, it's very difficult to get those deals. You have to build up this pipeline. You have to build up this big list. So I've got an Excel spreadsheet of every offer I've made on a property, and every 3 months it's connected to my phone. It's like a CRM. I get a message saying, call this person, let them know the offer's still there. And very often it'll be like, yep, sold, I'll delete it. But some of those deals come through. And the deal that we're working on this very moment in the UK, there's the 6-bed, that was a deal that came through, but I wasn't in a position to buy. So I sourced it and I sold it for £6,000, and it was online with the agent. It was advertised to the open market, but my offer got accepted and I sourced it for 6K. We're going to be refurbing it for the client. He bought it for like 255. He'll spend about 80 on it. It'll be worth 400 at the end of it, and he will get, because he's not getting a mortgage on it, which is for some reason. I don't know why he's buying it cash. So that's why his first deal is able to be a 6-bed HMO, because he's buying it cash. If it was with lending, they wouldn't look at him. And he's going to get about $3,000 to 2,800 net off that, which is great for his first deal. So he's going to make all his money back pretty much instantly, which is fantastic. But that's the type of deals that you need to be looking at, is in between the 300 and below for the first deal that you're going to be sourcing on. The first deal you want to be purchasing is a fairly standard vanilla buy-to-let with potential to extend in the future, because you're not going to be doing anything too fancy for your first deal. So just a nice 3-bed semi or detached or whatever you want to go. Maybe it's got suitable uses for HMO in the future, but it's more about getting your foot on the ladder more than it is about making money for the first deal. The chunk of money that you're going to make from sourcing is probably what you're going to put into this first deal. And it's more about experience. Like, buy-to-lets aren't that great. You can get fairly good returns, but it pales in comparison to the HMOs. There's just nothing that comes close to it, unless you buy a bad HMO. And right, guys, that is the end of the podcast. Thank you for joining me. I thought I'd do a nice backdrop from the apartment that we're in. This is Bangkok. I'm in Thailand at the moment with my girlfriend's family. So I'll be jumping online now and doing the podcast now that I'm fit, healthy, and also that I have a good signal. Thanks for your time. Next week's podcast, again, Wednesday, tune in and I'll be